From the Xfinity Studios at WVON. We're your original social media. Hashtag Matt McGill on 1690, the talk of Chicago.
Is a class and racial remake of the city to the extent that we haven't before.
People are coming back to the core of the cities. Who lives in the core of the cities? Black people.
Manhattan of the future will be a place that will be reserved primarily for people who are rich.
What if everyone had their own economy except you?
So they fix up the urban neighborhoods, not for the residents. They fix them up so that the white newcomers to our city will have a place to live, and the black community is left with...
The black community is under duress all the time. But there is no memo, no smoking gun, no backroom plan that says, who can we do in today? I know.
The only time resources are used to develop these communities when there are long-term plans in place to remove the people from those communities, to force migrations.
Does that sound familiar to you? That sounds like something we talk about on WVON all the time. You guys have said, Matt, there's a reason why they put the new Mariano's in Bronzeville. There's a reason why they put the new Whole Foods in Inglewood. There's a reason why you see some of the things that are being built up in our community. It's not for you, black man, black woman, black family. It's for the people that are going to move in. This is a story that we talk about all the time in Chicago. It's a story that's been lived out in Washington, D.C., among other cities in America. Washington, D.C. has probably played out more than any place in recent memory. We are talking about gentrification. This docu-film, which I encourage you guys to join us here at WVON and see, is coming to Chicago on February 18th. It's entitled Gentrified, Ethnic Cleansing, American Style. It's all about you, Chicago, the inner city. February 18th here at Washington Cultural Center. The producer of this film is on the live line with me, Jason Black. Jason, welcome to WVON. It's good having you on. The billboard, You Will Be Moved, got a lot of attention. People were wondering what this billboard was saying, and with the astute radio listeners that I have at WVON, people were texting me about, have you seen this? You know what this means? You know how to get some attention there, brother.
Thank you very much for having me here. It says you black people are being pushed out of Chicago. I wanted to make sure I put up something that was unambiguous and wasn't open to interpretation, although some people did try to interpret it differently. But I think once you see the facts on the ground, if you live in Chicago, I don't see how anybody can deny what's happening, especially where black people are concerned. I don't see how anybody could be unclear if they've been paying attention in Inglewood and Bronzeville. I don't see how you miss it.
You know what was the motivation behind it? Because I'm looking at some of the cities where you are having screenings in Chicago, in New York, Detroit, Atlanta, D.C., of course, is a city. And the reason why I bring D.C. up is because, I mean, it seems like it was not too long ago when we were talking about the murder rate in Washington, D.C., and Marion Barry being the mayor and what inner Washington, D.C. looked like. And now when you go there, I'm not sure where black people live in Washington, D.C. The neighborhoods that were once downtrodden are unaffordable to black people. Was it you seeing what happened in cities like Washington, D.C., potentially what's happening in Detroit, to say, hey, look, could be happening in a city near you? And Chicago looks like the textbook example of what could be happening here.
What we call gentrification, which is really ethnic displacement through economic means, is happening in every single major city, mid-sized city, and most of what you would call smaller cities in America. It is not confined to the Big 12 or the Big 14 like New York, Chicago, L.A. This is happening everywhere. And I did this film because people have a misnomer that, oh, that's just happening in New York or Harlem, and maybe it's happening in part of my city, but there's other places it's not happening. This is untrue. It is happening everywhere. It is concerted. It is organized, and it's targeting us. So I want us all to be on the same page because as black people, I've stated clearly, there's a faction of American society that sees itself engaging in what they would consider the unfinished business of slavery. And that unfinished business is removing us. We're an obsolete labor force. We are not necessary for their socioeconomic means any longer, and they'll have a lot more resources for themselves if they can remove us. We've been waiting for a cattle cars moment like Nazi Germany. That's not going to happen to us. Nobody's going to walk up to the front door and say, okay, get on this train. What they are going to do instead is let us wither on the vine over the course of 40, 50 years. And you're seeing that the final pieces have now been pushed into place. You have a right said, I don't care what happens to black people, period. That's letting you know you're going to have no protection at the city level, the state level, or what used to be our only protection, the federal level. Now that's completely gone.
I've heard people in New York talk about how Harlem is changing. I haven't been there in a while to see it. I've already mentioned Washington, D.C., Detroit, of course. Atlanta is another city with the emergence of neighborhoods like Midtown that people are saying you're about to see it happen in that city as well. My question to you, Jason, how does this happen in a country and in these cities where we have black population, one, but we also have black political representation. We have black capital. We have black political capital. We have intelligent people living in these cities. If the evidence and the handwriting is on the wall, is this avoidable? Is it preventable? And how can not the best and most intelligent minds in our community not prevent this from happening?
Well, you made a point there where you said we have black political representation. Let me make a slight correction on that. We have black political representatives, but I would argue that we do not have political representation, because if we did have political representation, they would be arguing to get us the same thing that everyone else has. The problem in black society is that when we measure success, when we measure progress, we don't look at groups outside of black society and say, hey, why don't we have, how are we doing compared to them? We look at the next black person next to us and say, how am I doing compared to him? And as long as we keep doing that, no wonder no real progress is made. Consider this. The brother of your mayor, Rahm Emanuel, bought the UFC for $4 billion. That's what progress is outside the community. That's what political representation is outside of the black community. If we are not building an economy, and I don't mean an economy does not mean getting a job somewhere. An economy means that you control the economic means of production and economic resources in your neighborhood, in your city, wherever you live. If you don't have that, you are simply squatters. And that's what a squatter is. He is somebody who is standing in a place he does not own, but claiming that he lives there. You are squatters in your own city. Until we make that the number one priority, we are simply waiting to be physically removed from every city in America and put in an out-of-sight, out-of-mind status, which is where you're just out there somewhere, no services, no police, no fire, no medical, no anything, and people are just saying, you know, used to be some black folk around here a long time ago, but they all just got up and left, as if you made a choice that you couldn't afford to live there any longer. Now they have a guilt-free way, a guilt-free methodology of removing you.
The name of the film, Gentrified, Ethnic Cleansing, American Style. This explosive new documentary from Black Channel Films exploring the unspoken ethnic component behind the most devastating socioeconomic movement in America today. It is coming to the Harold Washington Cultural Center, guys, on February 18th. We want you to be in the house to see this moving documentary. Jason, tell me where you went, who you shot. What is this documentary? What will people see on February 18th?
Well, I traveled across the country. I went from coast to coast. We went to New York, Chicago, Detroit, Philly, Atlanta, St. Louis, Nashville, Dallas, Houston, L.A. I've got a bunch of frequent flyer miles now. So we talked to academics. We talked to social activists. We talked to business people. We talked to realtors. We talked to as many people as we could who were really knowledgeable about this particular subject because we didn't want a bunch of speculation. I want to go back to something you mentioned before where you said they used to talk about D.C. and how bad it was. And when Marion Barry was there, they called it Chocolate City. And Chocolate City is on its way to no longer being that, even in a periphery way. If you've been to the downtown Capital District, Donald Trump's got a big building there. Black folks don't have anything at all. They've been pushed out of that area altogether. And D.C. is as expensive as any place that you could find in Midtown Manhattan now. That's Washington, D.C. today. Black folk are just it's a spreading circle going outward. But what did you say before about crime? They kept talking about crime, and that was their hook in to say, we got to make some change. This exact same steady drumbeat about Chicago. It's crime. It's crime. You got to do something about it. And what do you know? Here comes Whole Foods. Here comes Mariano's. This is going to be the way that they deal with that. They'll do economic investment, which we know is really the cause of your crime issue. They'll do it just so long as you don't control it, and they'll use it as a tool to completely erase you and remove you from those areas and say, see, we fixed the problem. We got rid of you, just like we did in D.C., just like we did in Harlem. You're seeing this methodology play itself out again right now, and nobody cares about it until they get their eviction notice. Then everybody's concerned about it.
What did you notice about Chicago when you were here shooting that really points to evidence, hardcore evidence that this is happening? Some people would say the closing of the 50 schools that was hotly debated in national news, but I'm sure that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, well, anybody who goes to Chicago, if they haven't been there, speaking about our illustrious president, for those of you who don't know, he's got a big skyscraper in downtown Chicago with his family's name on it in huge letters. You can see it from Lake Shore when you're driving by. It's like they got that area split just so you can see his building there, amazingly enough. The difference between downtown Chicago and Southside Chicago is night and day for anybody who has not been there as far as economic development. What struck me first was when I saw the sign that says Whole Foods on South Halsted. That was what struck me, because that is a bulwark. That's a beachhead. Whenever you see a Whole Foods going up, that's the most expensive food in America. Is that for the most economically depressed people in a city? You're building one right in the middle of it? That is not food for the people who currently live there. That is a beachhead and a flag for people downtown and in other areas to say, hey, you don't have to go downtown to go to Whole Foods anymore. We got one right here on South Halsted, and if your food is here, why don't you just live in the neighborhood? That's the way it always works. It's convenient. It is amenities that those people are accustomed to, not the people who live in the area. So when you see a marker like that, Whole Foods is a nationwide symbol of gentrification. When that thing comes in, get ready for everything to change in the neighborhood, period.
Connie, good morning. Welcome to WVON. You're on with Jason Black, the producer of Gentrified, Ethnic Cleansing, American Style.
Good morning, Matt. Thank you so much for taking my call and your guest. I am so thrilled and enthused to hear him enunciate on this particular situation here in Inglewood, as well as other cities across the nation, like Inglewood. I have been discussing this flag. I'll call it a red flag, with my family for the longest. About 2 to 3 years ago, the Tribune did an in-depth article on what's coming in Inglewood, and I read it. And I read about Whole Foods at that time. And prior to that, I think it was in 2005 or 2004, the city laid out a whole new sewer system over here. That made me aware right then and there that changes were about to be taking place over here. Then, like your guest so well put that they put up the Whole Foods. Then this article the Tribune wrote about, they had put in there that there's a military residence coming to Inglewood that's going to house veteran mothers with their children. Then along 63rd West, they're going to put up another high rise. So, and then they're going to work on a train going, I think, all the way to Ashland again. And it takes me back to the early 60s when this whole neighborhood over here was entirely white. So I say that to underscore and confirm what your guest is so well documented, and I do intend to see his film, that they're not doing this for people my color. They're not doing this for us. It is for them. You go in Whole Foods right now, and I guarantee you're going to see the welcoming mat and those people taking advantage of it. And what I mean by those people of another persuasion, coming in there, I mean, they're comfortable, and it's okay. It's okay with me because I'll go in there as well.
Right. And look, I've said, when the first time I went over to that Whole Foods, I said, man, look at Inglewood. I started looking around, and I could just close my eyes and see the opportunity and the potential. That neighborhood, Inglewood, is the next hot neighborhood in Chicago, Jason. And I'm thinking about how when we look at these traditional, historic African American neighborhoods around the country, like Harlem, I mean, Inglewood is like that, and it offers all of those same attributes that are attracted to people. It's smack dab in the heart of the city. It's close to transportation arteries like the Dan Ryan Expressway and public transportation, not far from Midway Airport. The houses are brick houses that have this incredible architecture and good foundation to them. It had, and Connie just talked about doing the sewer system. When you start seeing these infrastructure works, public work projects happening in your neighborhood, that is a good sign. I don't have much time, but I do want to ask you this real quick, Jason. Is there any gentrification that is good for black people?
Yes, if we actually control the economy of it. What we have to understand is that if Dr. Claude Anderson has said it for decades, and it's not going to change. If we don't own it, if we don't control it, and if we can't pass it down, it means nothing. We're just waiting. We're just squatters waiting to be removed. We've been trying everything except developing our own economy. Voting for politicians will not work because politics is how you divide up resources, and if you own no resources, you're just begging to divide up someone else's. If we don't control our economy, so we control buying the houses, owning the businesses around them, we are simply waiting to be removed. So yes, gentrification could be a positive if we were the ones pushing it, like the Asians do in Chinatown and like the Latinos do in Mexican Town. If we were pushing the events, yeah, it'd be great for us. As it is, we're just the people who are providing the food that other people are consuming.
Now, Jason, I want our listeners to know how they can support you. Number one, by coming out to the screening February 18th at the Harold Washington Cultural Center. Give them the information on that. Is there a website they can go to?
Yes, sir. You can go to our website, youwillbemoved.org. For those of you making your morning commute on the Dan Ryan, you should be familiar with it by now. youwillbemoved.org. And it's not just for black folk. If you're white, I think you should come out too. As a matter of fact, this is a film for everybody. It's a public resource, and definitely come by our website. Just click where it says tickets, and you can get yours today.
All right, and you'll see Chicago listed there, and you put in a password for Chicago and everything. Let's pack out the Harold Washington Cultural Center, WVON listeners. This is going to be a topic of discussion in Chicago for a long time. I'm gonna get Jason back on the show because I want to not only talk about coming out on February 18th, but Jason, how can we support filmmaking like this? Beyond February 18th, we need to keep, feeding the system that produces documentaries like this and stories about America. I encourage everybody to watch another documentary that really complements this documentary. This was made by a white guy, but watch Michael Moore's Capitalism, a Love Story. And if you pair that up with what Jason is talking about in this documentary, brother, everything falls into place. You see what's going on in America and why we need to be concerned. So is there any way that our listeners can support you beyond on the 18th, my friend?
Well, I believe in taking baby steps. If they really want to do a big thing here, I would like to see us just do the first thing. Come out now, make this a priority, because our priorities have been really thrown off. We've been trying to swing in the dark at a bunch of things that don't work. If you really want to see changes beyond just the film, because I'm not in the filmmaking business, I'm in the motivation business. If you really want to see changes there, show up on the 18th, or don't. Just wait for the bulldozers to show up in your neighborhood.
All right, got Jason Black, producer. The name of the film, Gentrified, Ethnic Cleansing, American Style. We're going to have to do a part 2 of this interview because I got some phone calls for you. I'm just out of time on this segment, brother. Appreciate your time. Good luck. I will see you on the 18th. I'm sure I'm going to talk to you before then. Check it out, guys. Go to the website. You will be moved, ED. You will be moved.org. Get your tickets, get your information. Jason, you're amazing. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, sir.
All right, man. It's 8:27. I'm out of here.